My mom actually asked me to cancel my wedding. All because my half-sister's feelings might get hurt. Instead of giving in, I uninvited them both. The way I handled it left everyone absolutely stunned. I'm Melissa, 28 years old, and I've been with my fiancé, Liam, he's 30, for 5 solid years. He's not just the guy I'm marrying. He's my best friend, my go-to person, and honestly one of the kindest, most grounded people I've ever met. When he proposed last April, it was like everything finally lined up in my life. But from the second I shared the news with my mom and half-sister Meg, who's 25, things went downhill fast. Instead of being happy for me, they turned the whole thing into some bizarre drama. Mom married her current husband, Greg, when I was 7, and Meg is their daughter. We technically grew up together, but we were never close. Think more, barely civil roommates than sisters. She's always had this strange tendency to compare herself to me. When we were younger, if I did better in school or someone gave me a compliment, she'd lose it. As we got older, that behavior just evolved. I got into college with a scholarship, she never went. I've been in a stable, loving relationship, she's jumped from one relationship disaster to another. Now that Liam and I are engaged, Meg's treating it like some sort of personal attack. Like me finding happiness is somehow taking something away from her. Liam proposed during a peaceful weekend at home, and we picked December for the wedding. We wanted a small, heartfelt ceremony, about 50 guests, nothing fancy. I figured my family would be just as excited. But the first time I told my mom about the engagement, instead of congratulations, she said, "Meg's not going to take this well." I thought she was being sarcastic. Turns out she wasn't. Apparently, me getting engaged was some kind of emotional threat to Meg because she was single and figuring herself out. I brushed it off, figured she'd get over it. But then Meg dropped a bomb. She got engaged too, to some guy none of us had ever met, after only 4 months of dating. I try not to judge, but this just seemed off. Meg's always been impulsive, but this felt especially reckless. Still, I kept my thoughts to myself. It's her life. By August, the whole thing blew up. Her husband cheated with her best friend, and 3 months in, they broke up. It was ugly, and I genuinely felt bad. I reached out, tried to be there for her. But she completely shut me out. It was like she was mad at me for something. Eventually, it dawned on me, Meg was blaming me. Somehow in her mind, my engagement set off her train wreck of a marriage. It was easier for her to point fingers at me than admit she rushed into something that wasn't right. My mom jumped in like Meg was the one who'd really been wronged. She started rubbing her back, all sympathetic, like Meg had been through some sort of tragedy. "She's right, Melissa," she said, shaking her head. "You really need to show more empathy. You have no idea how hard this has been for her." That was it. I snapped. I had kept my mouth shut for weeks trying to keep the peace, but I could not hold it in anymore. "This wedding has absolutely nothing to do with Meg," I said, trying not to raise my voice. "Liam and I have been planning this for an almost entire year. If she's upset, that's on her. Maybe she should stop blaming other people and start owning the fact that she rushed into a marriage that wasn't right for her." The silence that followed was brutal. My aunt looked like she wanted to vanish into the couch cushions. Meg's crying face twisted into something colder fury. "How dare you," she said. "You don't know what it's like when everything falls apart. You've had it easy, your full-ride scholarship, your sweet boyfriend, your charmed little life. You've never had to struggle for anything." I stood up, my hands clenched and my voice shaking. "You're right, Meg. I don't know what it's like to watch everything fall apart, but maybe that's because I don't make reckless choices just to keep up with other people. If you spent more time taking care of your own issues instead of resenting me, you wouldn't be in this mess." Liam reached for my hand and said quietly, "Let's go." I walked out without another word. The whole ride home, I kept reliving that moment in my head, wondering if I had gone too far. But honestly, the longer I thought about it, the more certain I became. I had every reason to say what I did. Meg had been taking jabs at me for weeks, and I was done letting her hijack my wedding just because she was miserable. What really stuck in my gut, though, was how fast my mom had come to her defense. Not once did she try to see things from my side. Not once did she acknowledge how much pressure I'd been under. It felt like she had already chosen a side, and it was not mine. The next morning, I got a message from her. "You owe your sister an apology for what you said. She's been through a lot and you were way out of line." I didn't answer. I was done apologizing for things that weren't my doing. At this point, it was crystal clear. Meg wasn't going to let this go, and Mom wasn't going to stop backing her up. I didn't know what their next move would be, but I knew I needed to start preparing for damage control. Meg and my mom weren't just being difficult. They were actively trying to derail something that was supposed to bring joy. And every time I tried to defend myself, it just poured fuel on their drama. Eventually, I came to a painful but necessary conclusion. The only way to protect my peace was to cut them out of the wedding completely. 3 days after the dinner, I sat down with Liam. My throat tightened as I spoke. I think I need to uninvite them, I said quietly. If they come, they're just going to ruin everything. Liam didn't hesitate. I've been thinking the same thing, he told me. It sucks. But this is our day, not theirs. You deserve to enjoy it without worrying what kind of chaos they'll bring. His support gave me the push I needed, but the idea of shutting out my own mother and sister was still gut-wrenching. It was not just about them, it was about how the rest of the family might react. Still, I knew I had to draw the line. I wrote out an email. I kept it brief and honest. I explained that their behavior, starting rumors, playing the guilt card, and constantly stirring up drama, showed me they weren't really happy for me. I told them their actions had caused me serious anxiety, and for my own mental health, I had made the decision to uninvite them. I hit send and immediately felt something shift, like I could finally breathe again. It didn't take long for the responses to come in. First came Mom. And wow, she went all in. She called me cold and heartless. She said I was destroying the family. Her email was full of theatrical statements like, I never thought my own daughter would turn on me, and you've chosen a man over your own flesh and blood. She even threw in, your father would be ashamed if he were still alive. Classic emotional blackmail. Then Meg followed up with a message that was pure bitterness. She said I was jealous of her, though of what, I truly have no clue, and accused me of punishing her for speaking her truth. She closed it off with a line that stuck in my head. You'll regret this when you realize you've broken this family apart. Over the next few days, I started getting hit with texts and phone calls from other relatives, people Mom and Meg had clearly filled in with their version of events. My uncle called just to tell me I was being selfish and should just move on for the sake of family unity. A cousin I hardly even know left a voicemail saying, how could you do this to your own mother? At first, it all made me feel like I was in the wrong. Like maybe I had gone too far. But then something incredible happened. People who actually cared about me started reaching out. My dad's sister, Aunt Diane, called and told me she was proud of me. You've put up with their crap long enough, she said. It's about time someone stood up to them. Things got awkward. Every time I tried talking wedding plans with my mom, she got weirdly quiet or changed the subject. I figured she just didn't want to talk about it because of Meg's situation. I didn't push. Then October hit. Liam and I had just mailed our wedding invitations. I was feeling great, like everything was coming together. 2 days later, I got a call from my mom. Now that was already unusual, she hardly ever calls. She's more of a once-a-month text kind of parent. So I picked up, thinking maybe she wanted to talk about the wedding. She started off nice, asking how we were doing. Then out of nowhere, she hit me with, so, you're really going through with it? I figured she meant the date or something. Yeah, everything's booked and paid for, I said. Then came this loud, exaggerated sigh. The kind you give when you're about to tell someone they've messed up their whole life. And then she said, I've been thinking about Meg, and I really think you should reconsider. I was thrown. Reconsider what? She paused like she was about to deliver some profound wisdom. I just do not think this is the best time for a wedding. Meg is still reeling from her divorce. Throwing a big party so soon, it might come off as insensitive. I blinked. Wait, you actually think I should cancel my wedding for Meg? Well, yes, she said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. She has been through so much, and watching you get married right now is going to be painful. I could barely find words. Mom, we've paid for everything. You're seriously asking me to cancel? She didn't even flinch. You could still get married, just keep it small. Maybe a simple ceremony with close family. No big celebration. That way you are not rubbing it in. That floored me. This isn't about showing off. Liam and I want to celebrate our love, not make anyone feel bad. This is our moment. She sighed again, this one even heavier. If you really cared about your sister, you do this for her. She needs time to heal, and your wedding, it's just going to make it harder. At that point, I was beyond angry. But I tried to keep my cool. Mom, I get that Meg's going through a tough time, but this has absolutely nothing to do with her, I said, trying to keep my cool. Liam and I have put so much time and energy into planning this wedding. It's not fair to expect us to change everything because of her situation. That set her off. She didn't choose for her husband to cheat, Melissa. She didn't ask for her life to fall apart. She snapped back. No, but she did choose to marry a guy she barely knew after 4 months, I said. That was apparently the nail in the coffin. Mom completely lost it, calling me heartless, accusing me of being selfish, and tossing in the classic, "I thought I raised you better than this." At that point I had enough. "I'm not canceling my wedding," I told her, trying not to scream. "This conversation's over." And I hung up, hands shaking, completely rattled. The first thing I did was call Liam and tell him everything. He was just as shocked as I was. "What kind of mom tells her daughter to call off her wedding because someone else got divorced?" he asked. Over the next few weeks, Mom was relentless. She kept calling me, always circling back to the same worn-out argument. "Meg's in pain, you're being thoughtless, a smaller wedding would mean the world to the family." It never ended. At one point, she even reached out to Liam directly. She called him and said something like, "You're such a kind soul, Liam. I know you'll understand why this matters so much for Meg right now." Thankfully, he shut that down right away and told her we weren't changing anything. And then Meg decided to jump into the mess herself. She started sending me these texts filled with veiled jabs. Stuff like, "Must be nice to have your life go so smoothly," or, "Don't you think a big wedding might be a little much right now?" She even went so far as to bring up the date. "December's a weird month for a wedding," she wrote. "Feels kind of pointed, don't you think?" I tried ignoring her, hoping it would fizzle out. But she only ramped things up. She started calling and leaving long, dramatic voicemails all about how hard weddings were for her to even think about. According to her, my lack of empathy was making her healing process impossible. It was draining. And honestly, it felt like she and my mom were feeding off each other's drama. Mom would call and say, "Meg was up crying again last night about your wedding." Then the next day Meg would text me, "Mom's so upset with how you're handling this." It never ended. I was at my limit. The stress was eating me alive, and all I kept thinking was, how did my wedding turn into a full-blown guilt campaign? That's when it clicked for me. This wasn't about Meg's divorce or her being heartbroken. This was about control. They didn't like that I was doing something for myself without putting their feelings first, and they were determined to drag me down for it. Meg wasn't content with just sending passive-aggressive texts anymore. Now she was actively working to make me look like some heartless villain. The final straw came on family dinner at my aunt's place. Liam and I had been invited there. I thought it'd be a good chance to relax, maybe escape the wedding chaos for a night. But Meg and Mom were there too, which, in hindsight, should have been my cue to stay home. From the start, the energy was tense. Meg barely looked at me, and anytime the wedding came up, she made sure to sigh or roll her eyes. At one point, I was just chatting with my aunt about flower arrangements when Meg muttered loud enough for the whole room to hear, "Must be nice wasting money on a party when some people are just trying to survive." I said nothing, but the room went quiet. Things calmed down for a bit after that, and I was finally starting to enjoy myself, until Meg suddenly burst into tears in the middle of the living room. Full-on sobbing, head shaking, whispering, "I just can't believe how cruel people can be." My aunt rushed over to comfort her, asking what happened. That's when Meg launched into her performance. Through tears, she said, "It's just all so hard." Not long after everything blew up, my cousin Chloe, who'd quietly been keeping tabs on Meg's antics, sent me a long, heartfelt message. "Please don't let them get under your skin," she wrote. "Everyone who really knows you is on your side. Even my godmother, who's usually blunt to the point of brutal, said you're doing the right thing. Your wedding should be about love, not bitterness and jealousy." That message landed like a lifeline. After weeks of feeling isolated, finally hearing support from someone who actually saw what was happening gave me a sense of relief I didn't realize I needed. But of course, Mom and Meg weren't going to disappear quietly. A week after I sent the email uninviting them, Chloe called me again. I could hear the mix of disbelief and irritation in her voice before she even said a word. "You're not going to believe what Meg's saying now," she started. "Apparently you uninvited her because you're threatened by her. She's telling people Liam has a thing for her," Chloe said flatly. "That he's been flirting with her and you found out, so you kicked her out to cover it up." It was so completely outlandish that I actually laughed. She seriously thinks anyone is going to believe that? "I mean, not really," Chloe said. "Most people are rolling their eyes. But you know how she works, she'll keep twisting the story until she finds someone gullible enough to eat it up." I decided right then and there I wasn't going to burn another ounce of energy on Meg's fantasy life. At that point, my only focus was protecting my peace and making sure our wedding went off without chaos. Liam and I sat down that night to review the guest list one last time and made a few calls to the venue to ensure they were fully briefed. Just in case. We even hired a couple of security guards. Something I never imagined doing for my own wedding, but this wasn't exactly a normal situation. Suddenly, things took a new turn. Meg began writing to Liam. Some texts were vague and pitiful about how alone she felt, how much she appreciated his kindness, how she had no one else. Let me be clear, Liam has never been anything but polite to her. They've never been close. There was no emotional history, no conversations of depth. So this sudden emotional attachment felt entirely performative. Still, we didn't respond. We figured if we stayed quiet, she'd eventually back off. But then came the message that blew that theory apart. I've been thinking about you a lot lately, she wrote. I know it's wrong, but I can't stop. I feel like there's something between us, something Melissa will never understand. I don't know how to deal with these feelings. I sat there stunned. It wasn't just inappropriate, it was calculated. This was a deliberate attempt to drive a wedge between us a week before our wedding. Liam, bless him, didn't hesitate. He turned to me and asked, how do you want to handle this? I took a deep breath. Block her. But first, take screenshots of everything. He did. Every message. Every word. We weren't going to let her try and spin this into another twisted narrative. The next morning I decided I'd had enough. I didn't respond to Meg directly, there was no point in feeding her fantasy, but I did send an email to my mom and a few close family members. I laid out the facts, attached screenshots, and kept my tone calm and straightforward. This is the kind of behavior I've been dealing with. I tried to keep the peace. I tried to avoid drama. But this is manipulative and crosses a serious line. If you've been wondering why she was uninvited, now you know. After I sent the email, my mom wasted no time responding. I think you're reading too much into this, she wrote. You misunderstood her intentions. And maybe Liam misread the text too. I can't believe you'd accuse your own sister of something so horrible. I rolled my eyes so hard I was surprised they didn't get stuck. At this point, I wasn't shocked, just exhausted. Thankfully, not everyone shared her perspective. Within minutes, Chloe called me. You've got to be kidding, she said, barely able to contain her outrage. I knew Meg was manipulative, but this is insane. Good for you for drawing the line. My Aunt Diane, Dad's sister, also reached out, and she was equally firm. You absolutely made the right call, she said. Meg has shown over and over again that she doesn't respect you. You don't owe her a spot at your wedding. That kind of support meant more than I can express. Meg's stunt wasn't just inappropriate, it was humiliating. It felt like a personal attack on everything Liam and I had worked to build. Whether it came from jealousy, bitterness, or some warped desire to control the spotlight, probably all three, it was clear she was trying to sabotage the happiest day of my life. With only a few days left before the wedding, I focused on reinforcing my boundaries. I contacted the venue to flag both Meg and my mother as not welcome in no uncertain terms. If Meg had hoped to shake me, she failed. If anything, I felt more resolved than ever to protect my peace. The wedding day started off beautifully. The venue looked like something out of a dream, flowers everywhere, soft music, sunshine. My bridesmaids kept the energy light as we got ready, and for the first time in a long time, I felt nothing but excitement. Liam and I had planned a private first look in the garden before the ceremony. The moment I saw him, nervous and smiling, I felt like the weight of the past few months melted away. About half an hour before the ceremony, I was back in the bridal suite doing touch-ups when Julia, my maid of honor, burst in. Her face said it all. Meg and your mom are here. I froze. What? How? Security was supposed to. They're trying to get in, Julia cut in. Security stopped them at the front, but they're making a scene. What are they saying? I asked, already bracing myself. Julia hesitated. Your mom's crying, saying she just wants to see her daughter get married. Meg is yelling. She's calling you selfish and saying you don't deserve today. My jaw clenched. They'd already torched the lead up to this wedding, now they wanted to derail the actual event? What do you want me to do? Julia asked. Nothing, I said. Let security handle it. If I go out there, it gives them what they want. She nodded and stepped out to coordinate. I sat there trying to keep calm. I could hear the faint shouting outside. A few minutes later, Julia returned. They're refusing to leave. The venue manager offered to call the police, but they're worried it'll cause more drama. I groaned. This was exactly why I uninvited them. Do you want me to tell Liam? No, I said firmly. He doesn't need that stress right now. Just make sure they stay away from the ceremony. Thankfully, the venue team and security stayed firm. They kept my mom and Meg contained to the parking lot and eventually arranged for a car to take them away. Once they were finally gone, I let out a long, shaky breath. I wouldn't let them take this day from me. The ceremony was everything I'd ever dreamed. When I walked down the aisle toward Liam, surrounded by people who genuinely loved and supported us, it felt like all the pain of the past months had been worth it. Afterward, during the cocktail hour, I started hearing whispers of what had happened outside. Apparently, Meg had been yelling that I was brainwashed and that Liam had turned me against my own family. Some guests overheard. Most rolled their eyes and moved on. My Aunt Diane found me during dinner and gave me a hug. "I'm so proud of you," she said. "You stood your ground." They embarrassed themselves, and now everyone sees them for who they really are. She wasn't the only one. Throughout the night, cousins, friends, even a few of my mom's old acquaintances pulled me aside to say they were on my side. It felt like something shifted, like a collective acknowledgement that I wasn't the problem. The rest of the evening was joy in motion. Liam and I danced under a canopy of twinkling lights. Julia gave a toast that had the whole room laughing and tearing up at the same time. My dad's best friend, basically family, told a story about Liam sneaking barbecue ribs out of a family cookout, and it brought the house down. I felt lighter than I had in months. Meg and my mom hadn't won. Their attempts to sabotage the day only made it more obvious how deeply loved and supported Liam and I were by the people who actually mattered. Back at the hotel that night, still buzzing from the magic of the wedding, I saw a string of missed calls and unread messages from my mom. I didn't even open them. I was done letting her and Meg rent space in my head, done playing the role of the bigger person while they chipped away at my peace. Cutting them out was one of the hardest decisions I've ever made. But standing beside Liam, surrounded by friends and family who truly showed up for us, I knew, without a shadow of doubt, it was the right one. Liam and I are moving forward, starting this next chapter on our terms. No more chaos. No more games. Just peace and each other.